My parents gave my college fund to my brother. Years later, they begged me for money. When I was 18, I had my whole future planned. I had worked my ass off in high school, earned top grades, and was ready to start college with a fully funded tuition, thanks to the savings my parents had promised me since I was a kid. But then, at the last minute, they gave it all to my brother. No discussion, no warning. Just a simple, "We think he needs it more than you." I was left scrambling, forced to take on massive debt, while my brother, who had zero ambition, burned through the money like it was pocket change. I swore I'd never forget it. Years later, after I built a successful career without their help, they came back, this time begging me for money. And I made damn sure they regretted every choice they made. Here's how it all went down. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Growing up, my parents always preached about hard work, responsibility, and fairness. They weren't rich, but they had saved up a college fund for me and my younger brother, Eric. They always told me, "We want you both to have a good education and a bright future." I believed them. So I worked my ass off in high school, honors classes, part-time jobs, volunteering. Anything that would give me a better shot at scholarships and college admissions. And it paid off. I got into my dream university and even secured a partial scholarship. The rest of the tuition, my parents assured me the college fund would cover it. "Don't worry," they said. "We've been saving for this." Then, just weeks before my freshman year, they sat me down and dropped the bombshell. We decided to use the college fund for Eric instead. I thought I misheard them. "Wait, what?" "Eric needs it more," my mom said, like it was the most logical thing in the world. "You got a scholarship and you're smart. You'll figure something out. But Eric, he needs all the help he can get." Eric, my lazy younger brother, who had barely graduated high school, suddenly needed my entire college fund. I was speechless. "You promised that money was for my education," I finally said, my voice shaking. "Life isn't always fair," my dad replied. "You'll manage." That was it. No apology, no remorse. They had stolen my future and handed it to my spoiled, entitled brother, who had no plan, no goals, and no intention of working for anything. I had never felt so betrayed. But they were right about one thing. I did figure something out. And years later, when they came begging for help, I made sure they remembered exactly what they did to me. After that conversation, my world flipped upside down. The money I had counted on for years, gone. My parents didn't even try to help me figure out another option. They just assumed I'd be fine, because I was the smart one. But let me tell you, being smart doesn't pay for tuition. With no other choice, I took out massive student loans. I worked 2 part-time jobs while juggling classes, barely scraping by. Meanwhile, my brother Eric, living the dream. He went to a mediocre college, fully paid for, with zero financial worries. No part-time job, no student debt. Just partying, skipping classes, and burning through the money my parents handed him on a silver platter. I tried not to let it eat me up, but every time I saw my mom posting about how proud she was of Eric, I wanted to scream. Proud of what? The guy was failing half his classes and had no job prospects. Meanwhile, I was barely sleeping, struggling to keep my grades up, and constantly worrying about my future. I confronted my parents once, asking them why they thought it was okay to leave me struggling while Eric got everything handed to him. My mom actually had the audacity to say, "You're stronger than Eric. We knew you'd be fine." Fine? I was drowning. But I pushed through. I graduated with honors despite everything. And while Eric, he dropped out after 2 years. And that was the last time I ever let my parents or my brother get in the way of my success. Because while they were busy making excuses, I was about to build a life that would prove them all wrong. After graduation, I made a promise to myself. I would never rely on my parents for anything again. They had made it clear where I stood in their priorities, so I decided to make my own path, my own way. I hustled like never before. With my degree in hand, I landed an entry-level job in my field. The pay wasn't great, and my student loan debt loomed over me like a dark cloud. But I didn't complain. I worked. I took extra shifts, accepted freelance gigs on the side, and made sure I was always learning, always improving. Meanwhile, Eric, still living at home, unemployed, and bouncing between business ideas that never lasted more than a month. My parents kept making excuses for him, saying he was just finding himself. Translation: he was mooching off them while I was out in the real world grinding. But I didn't care. I wasn't competing with him. I was focused on winning at life. Within a few years, my work paid off. I got promoted, then promoted again. I moved to a new city, got my own place, and finally felt free. The best part? I paid off my entire student loan debt by myself. I never once asked my parents for help. Not for rent, not for bills, not for anything. I was completely independent, and honestly, I was proud of that. But then, just as I was hitting my stride, something unexpected happened. My parents called. At first, it was just small talk, something they had barely done since I moved out. But then, after a few minutes, my mom hesitated. "Honey, we need to talk about something important." And that's when they hit me with it. They were struggling financially. The parents who had taken away my future, the ones who told me to figure it out when I was drowning in debt, were now asking me for help. I sat there, listening to their pitiful sob story, and all I could think was, this is going to be fun. I leaned back in my chair, letting their words hang in the air. "We're in a really tough spot," my mom continued, her voice laced with the same helplessness she never seemed to have when I needed her. "Your father's hours got cut, and money is really tight." I didn't say anything, so she kept going. "We thought we'd be okay, but with the house payments, groceries, and helping Eric..." She trailed off, but I caught that last part loud and clear. Helping Eric. Even now, he was still leeching off them. I clenched my jaw. The same parents who let me struggle through college, who stole my tuition money, who told me I'd figure it out, were now expecting me to save them. My dad finally spoke up. "We know you're doing well for yourself," he said. "You've always been so responsible. We were hoping you could help out. Just a little. You know, for family. For family." That word hit me hard. Where was that family mindset when I was working 2 jobs to survive? When I had to take out loans and dig myself out of debt alone? Where was that family support when they handed my college fund to my lazy, entitled brother? I took a slow breath, keeping my voice calm and measured. "How much are you asking for?" I could hear the relief in my mom's voice, like she thought I was just going to roll over and say yes. "Oh, sweetheart, anything would help. But if you could spare at least $15,000, that would get us back on our feet." I nearly laughed. $15,000? That was more than I had in my bank account at any point in college. That was 3 semesters of my tuition, and now, after years of ignoring me, they wanted me to hand it over without question? I smiled, though they couldn't see it over the phone. "I'll think about it," I said smoothly. "Let's talk again soon." Then I hung up, because I already knew exactly how this was going to go. After hanging up, I sat there for a while, thinking. My parents had spent years ignoring my struggles, acting like my problems weren't real because I was strong and would figure it out. But now they were the ones struggling, and the funniest part? It was all their own doing. They had spent years enabling Eric, paying for his nonsense while pushing me aside, and now that they were in financial ruin, they suddenly remembered I existed. But I wasn't going to be petty about this. No, I was going to handle this like a professional. A few days later, I called them back. My mom answered on the first ring. "Sweetheart, hi, have you thought about..." I cut her off. "I have, actually, and I want to help, but before I do, I need to understand your situation better." I could practically hear her relief. "Of course, we can go over everything." "Great," I said. "Send me a full breakdown of your expenses, all your debts, monthly bills, any major upcoming costs. I need to see everything before I commit to anything." Silence. My dad cleared his throat. Well, we don't really have it all written down." "Then now's the perfect time to start," I replied smoothly. "You wouldn't want me to give you money without knowing what it's going toward, right?" More silence. My mom finally sighed. "Okay, we'll put something together." I already knew they wouldn't, because their finances weren't just bad, they were a disaster, and I was about to make them realize it. A week passed, and shockingly, my parents never sent me the financial breakdown I asked for. I wasn't surprised, but I wasn't going to let them dodge the question either, so I called them up. Hey, just following up. Did you get a chance to put together those numbers? There was an awkward silence before my mom finally spoke. Well, sweetheart, things have just been hectic, but it's not that complicated. We just need a little help. How much debt are you in? I asked directly. She hesitated. We don't really think of it as debt. It's more like temporary financial strain. I almost laughed. Mom, I'm not going to give you money blindly. If you need help, I need to know exactly what's going on. My dad jumped in, clearly frustrated. Why are you making this so difficult? We raised you, we took care of you, and now we just need a little support in return. It's not a big deal. That was it. That was the moment I realized they didn't feel guilty. They didn't regret what they did to me. In their minds, I owed them. I took a slow breath and kept my voice calm but firm. You didn't take care of me. You abandoned me the moment you decided Eric was more important. You forced me into debt while giving him a free ride, and now you expect me to bail you out? You didn't raise me. I raised myself. Silence. If you won't give me your financial breakdown, I can't help you, I said simply. My mom started to stammer. But honey, we're family. Yeah, and when I needed family, where were you? I let that sink in for a second before continuing. I'm done talking about this. If you ever want to have an honest conversation about how we got here, I'll listen. But I'm not giving you a single penny just because you suddenly realized I exist again. And with that, I hung up. Because this time, they could figure it out. After that call, things went silent. For weeks, I didn't hear a single word from my parents. No guilt-tripping texts, no fake check-ins, nothing. I figured they were either too ashamed or too angry to respond. Maybe both. Then one day, I got a call from my aunt. What did you do to your parents? She demanded the second I picked up. I blinked. Excuse me? They're saying you refused to help them in their time of need, that you turned your back on family. I laughed, actually laughed. Of course they were spinning the story, leaving out the part where they stole my college fund and left me drowning in debt. Did they tell you why they needed money? I asked, already knowing the answer. My aunt hesitated. Not really, just that they're struggling and you won't lift a finger to help. And did they mention how they handed all my college money to Eric, leaving me to fend for myself? Silence. Yeah, I continued. I had to work 2 jobs to survive while they covered everything for him. And now, after years of ignoring me, they suddenly remember I exist because they need money? I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. I didn't know that. Of course you didn't, I said, because they only tell the part of the story that makes me look bad. But if they're so desperate, why don't they ask Eric for help? Oh, wait, he's still living off of them, isn't he? My aunt didn't argue. By the end of the call, she wasn't mad at me anymore. If anything, she sounded disappointed in them. And I knew then the truth was spreading. The family was starting to see them for who they really were. And my parents, they had no one left to blame but themselves. After that call with my aunt, the ripple effect started. Word spread through the family fast. My cousin texted me, Dude, your parents are calling everyone trying to make you look bad. But after hearing your side, yeah, no one's buying their story. Another relative messaged, They really gave your entire college fund to Eric, and now they expect you to bail them out? That's insane. One by one, people started pulling away from them. My parents had spent years favoring Eric, enabling him while treating me like I didn't matter. Now, no one was rushing to save them, and Eric, still useless. My mom finally called again, but this time, her tone was different. No more guilt-tripping, no fake warmth, just cold resignation. Well, she sighed, I guess we see where we stand now. I let the silence drag before replying. I guess we do. Because the truth was, I had already grieved this relationship years ago. I had fought through college on my own. I had built my career without their support. I had thrived despite everything they did. Now they were finally feeling what it was like to be abandoned, and I wasn't about to fix it for them. After that last call, I knew it was over. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what they had done, just bitterness that I wouldn't clean up their mess. And honestly, that was fine, because for the first time in my life, I was free. No more guilt, no more resentment weighing me down, no more chasing after people who had never cared enough to chase after me. A few months later, I heard through the family that my parents had to sell their house. Their debts had piled up too high, and Eric, in The Golden Child, never lifted a damn finger to help them. He still lived off them as long as he could, but eventually the money ran out. I didn't check in. I didn't ask where they went or what they were doing, because it wasn't my problem. As for me, I was thriving. I had a great job, financial security, and peace of mind. The kind of life I had fought tooth and nail to build without their help. One day, I got a final message from my mom. "You've really changed." I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. Number? I just finally learned who my real family is. And then I blocked her number. Because the truth is, some relationships aren't worth saving. And sometimes, the best revenge is just living well. This whole experience taught me something important. Family isn't about blood. It's about who actually shows up for you. You don't owe anyone loyalty if they never gave you the same. Walking away isn't weakness, it's power. If you've ever had family betray you, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about how we take our power back. And if you like this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more real-life tales of karma, justice, and self-worth. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.